Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fifth episode of Black Nerds Matter. I'm your host, Diedrich Davis. Today, we're joined by Dr. Raven, the Science Maven Baxter. She's a scientific communicator, University of Buffalo alumna, Forbes 40 under 40, and a Woman of Distinction Award winner. Hey, Raven, how you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for the intro.
Of course. How's it feel to be our very first guest with a PhD?
Oh, shoot. That's crazy. It's funny because sometimes I forget I even have a PhD, but I'm honored. Thank you so much for thinking of me. And I can't wait to see what you have up your sleeve for this episode.
No, I'm really happy you're here. I mean, we're moving up. We got PhD people now. We're getting it together now. I'm really just happy to see everything come together. So it's awesome. Yeah, so I have a few questions for you. I'm hoping you're happy to answer some.
Of
But
course.
so can you share your journey into science communication and how you discovered your passion for making science accessible to a broader audience?
Yeah. So my journey into SciComm was sort of accidental, but definitely purpose driven. I would say that I started out as a very traditional scientist, got a bachelor's and master's in bio and ended up focusing on molecular biology, and then took a role right out of grad school in a drug discovery lab. And it was a really great job. I just found that I was not feeling included in that space. And no matter what I did or how hard I tried to be perceived as a team player, I simply wasn't given opportunities to really be and feel a part of the team. And so I just had to sit with that and be like, well, what is all of this for? I don't want to spend the rest of my life like feeling this way. It's a horrible way to start your career and even just exist in the world, because feeling a sense of belonging is a basic human need. That is innately what we all desire. I left that corporate biotech research lab space and pivoted into education. And when I realized that education was more so about formal education, and when I saw how that worked internally, I realized that the systems and the structures that exist in K-12 and even higher ed really can be harmful, right? And I didn't necessarily want to be a part of that. I wanted to influence science from the outside, and while still serving as an inspiration for people who are in STEM, but really trying to bridge a gap between people who aren't in STEM and the STEM field itself. And that is how I learned about science communication. I ended up doing a PhD studying science communication. I was fascinated by it. Believe it or not, science communication itself, the field is only about 50 years old. So there's a
Wow.
lot of theory, and there's a lot of, I guess, knowledge building that still needs to be done um in developing this as a field. That is how I got into science communication.
That's so you were talking about things being harmful through K through 12 education. You said a little further on from that. What kind of harmful things are you speaking of? Because I'm not sure if all of our listeners can understand from a scientific perspective how those things can be hurtful to somebody's career path and their trajectory.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that you might hear, ring true in this situation as well, as low pay for teachers, or really high teacher to student ratios. Some teachers have 30 or even 35 students in one classroom, and they all have really unique needs. And it's a very formative time in students' lives, and a lot of students don't get the time that they deserve for that personalized education because the teachers are already spread thin. And administration within K-12 are just simply enforcers of structures that perpetuate these issues, right? Everybody is just trying to do their job and make sure that everybody is following the rules, but the rules don't benefit everybody. I think that the entire US K-12 system needs a total overhaul, makeover. I think that there certainly needs to be a fresh breath of life And that is why sometimes you see me maybe on my platforms. I'm joking, but I'm also like not joking that I want to be the US Secretary of Education one day, because I do feel like it's going to take somebody who has seen that system and envisions something better to really push for a change. And then also, the inequities in K-12, the districts and even the schools themselves vary greatly, and people coming from one neighborhood might be getting a vastly better education than someone coming from a different neighborhood, even if those neighborhoods are just 10 miles apart. And I think that issue in itself perpetuates the lack of scientific understanding. When these people become adults and they're ready to engage in the real world, so to speak, and one person graduated with a 12th grade level of understanding science and the other graduated with a 5th grade level, we can see how that plays out in the long term. And so without promoting college as a way to level the playing field, I think science communication plays a major role in leveling the playing field, because you get to teach science essentially, or share science rather, with a broader audience, and you can develop a target audience too to help bridge that gap.
Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from because my mom is actually a teacher and she's taught like first or kindergarten and preschool all the way to like fifth and sixth grade. And has just told me, and through the different places we've moved to, living in Texas versus Pennsylvania and Florida, she's told me just how different the teaching is, like curriculum and all that is, in all these different places. And now they have all these standardized testing. I have to standardize test kindergartners, and I'm spread too thin. And she's very much wants to leave the job she's at now, but doesn't want to leave the kids. And it's like this whole thing because the kids can be more, they can be more rowdy when they're getting less attention because she doesn't have help in the class. And it's just a domino effect. One thing, you have one less thing, then you have one less thing, and that leads to something else. And then things just stop working all together like they should. And yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. I think if you don't have someone that's in your family doing that, or someone personally who's working with that, you'd never know how things change once you're out of school and done with it.
Absolutely. And I get inspired by people who are saying, when they see my content, I wish that I had a teacher like you when I was in school. That says a lot. And my belief is that that shouldn't happen, right? It shouldn't take you going through an entire, 13 years of, kindergarten, then first through 12th grade. It shouldn't take that 14th year when you're finally like, oh, wow, I finally found someone that I could identify with. Dang, I wish that I had someone like that in my earlier years. Like, I don't think that should happen. But that is the current situation. People who are in science and are public facing, in my opinion, bear a responsibility to make sure that everyone can be a part of the scientific conversation.
Absolutely. I think it's really, I'm really glad you highlighted that point that it's a lot of our responsibility and people who are doing science to try to communicate that and make sure people are understanding what's going on and, try to do our best to make education the best it can be for everyone, not just people who have access to more resources and the best schools and all these other things. So I definitely love hearing that sentiment. So I remember us speaking briefly about people in wiki forums arguing over your scientist status. What are some of the biggest challenges you face in your career as a science communicator, and have you overcome them? These can be personal, professional, whatever you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, this came to my attention because I looked at my Wikipedia page and I noticed that there was some incorrect information on there. And so I was just clicking around to see, okay, can I correct this? Can I take this out? Because this isn't true. And I asked around and they said, oh, you can just go to the back end of Wikipedia and you can actually self edit your page. And I said, oh, that's kind of weird, but I'm going to try to do that. And so when you do that, and you can actually see this without logging into Wikipedia, I believe, but the talk page, you can click on that, and it's basically all of the editors on Wikipedia who are, I guess, responsible, or they made themselves responsible for keeping up your page. And I honestly was not prepared. Nothing could have prepared me for what I was going to see there. I honestly did not expect much at all because it's just me. What could people possibly be talking about? And lo and behold, entire essays on the back end of my Wikipedia page. And the
Wow.
bulk of the essays that people were writing were about the use of the word scientist around contextualizing what I do. And I found that to be just really dumb. Like, I call myself a molecular biologist because that's my specialty. But they were reserving the word scientist for people who actively are conducting experiments in a lab. And
No, no, no.
I know, they decided to strip the scientist title from my page and instead preface it by saying educator and molecular biologist, which, whatever. But I actually feel really petty about that. Like, it's not a big deal, but it's a little thing. It's a very little detail that actually means a lot because I'm sure that other pages don't get policed as much as mine. And I actually have made it a point to get involved in molecular biology research at my new position at Mount Sinai Hospital because I want to start publishing work in my field so that I can show people, right? Like what I know other than making rap music videos, other than tweeting or making Instagram posts. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, but a good one, right? On one hand, I actually haven't published anything. People are probably really surprised. I haven't published any of my research. To me, that's a problem. And then two, I have 2 degrees in molecular bio and haven't published any molecular bio research. So, aside from my dissertation in science communication, there aren't like scholarly things that people can read to validate my title as scientist, other than at one point that was my actual job title. So stay tuned, y'all, for my publication. And I say all that to say, my haters are my biggest motivators because, in my opinion, haters are some of the people on this planet who can best point out, and you could take it whatever they say with a grain of salt. But if you have tough skin like me, you see your haters as people who are the best people who can point out your flaws. And they are the people who are going to find those little holes to poke through and validate who you are. And if you can develop a healthy relationship with that, I think it's a very powerful tool for self improvement and to challenge yourself. I think a lot of what I do as a science communicator, the metrics that measure like my success are largely like intangible. How many likes did I get on this post? How many followers do I have? What are people commenting? But the metric for an academic is publications. So I can't disregard that. And I think it is fair criticism for someone to say, well, she, hasn't done like formal research. I get that. So haters gonna hate, but I'm still that girl. So like I'm not gonna give people too much to hate about for too much longer. And if they do hate, like I got fans. Like they're also my fans. So yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Hey, we're fans of you here at Black Nerds Matter for sure. I like you're like, hey, I got something for y'all. Y'all say I don't got this, I'll show y'all. I'm gonna show y'all
Boom.
what I got. I'm gonna get it out here, and y'all gonna see who don't got a publication now. No, I understand.
Period. No, you already know, Diedrich, the day that I finally publish, it's gonna be everywhere. I want everybody to read it. It's gonna be
I'll
some
put it on my
fire
wall.
work.
I'll put it on my wall for sure.
Thank you.
So between rapping, speaking at conferences, producing your own media such as podcasting, and answering everyone's Zoom calls when they have career questions, pointing at myself because I'm asking those questions all the time. How do you find time for yourself and to hang out with your dog and just be you, be Raven after hours?
Gosh, well, I mean, first I'll say I take great reward in doing all of those things. And someone said something, I think it might have been Ron, my boyfriend, who said, like, your life, your passion is your life work. And it doesn't feel like work because it is your life. Like it is your purpose. It's the value in that you bring to the world and that feeds into your joy, but also other people's success and potentially even their joy. And so, doing what I do is I can't imagine myself doing anything else. So I know I'm doing something right. And then when I'm not directly involved in science communication, love just sitting out in the sun. I love going to the beach. I like gardening. I sound very domestic. I promise you, like, I ain't that girl, but I guess I might be that girl. I need to like reassess who I am, maybe, but like, I take joy in the simple things. I really, really do.
That's awesome. I've been reading a lot of Buddhist literature, and it talks mostly about kind of giving. Giving is to receive, and I think about it a lot when I think of Christmas and how getting stuff. I don't care as much about that, but I care about seeing how my family and people I care about react. Oh, you got me this thing I've been looking for so long, and I can understand when it comes to science and helping people, even mentoring, like you do with all the people you help, including me, that you seeing them do something with what they're doing can make you happy because you're like, wow, I made a difference in their life and they're able to be happier. And it's like, you can never, one thing I learned is you can never take love from someone. You can only give it because you put more in the world. It's like an infinite thing that you can give out.
Ooh, yeah, 100%. I agree. And I love, like, what, question for you. How do you read about Buddhism? Like, is there a certain way to go about exploring that?
Yes, so I'm a newly Buddhist follower and all that. Woo woo, we're doing that now. I've got my little brother into it. I've been visiting the temple in Florida, something I've really been interested in. And I literally just bought a book online at Thrift Books and was like, okay, Intro to Buddhism. Been reading that for a few months now and putting those daily practices in, just trying to be mindful and always kind and making sure that I do everything with kindness in order. And it's honestly helped me out so much in my life. It made me feel like I'm making a difference because I never feel like I'm taking anyone's time. And with certain small things that happen now, I don't become upset at them anymore. I'm just like, okay, it's fine. And I'm thinking about yesterday, my brother ate all my popcorn. I didn't even get to try it. And I was just like, it's fine. Like, if he was hungry, he can have it. He probably needed it more than me in that moment. Versus before, I probably would have ripped his head off for it. So, Devin, you're listening to this. I love you, man. It's okay.
It's okay. I love that. And I think like the world certainly needs more of that. I think we're in a very hostile world and people are so quick to react and everyone is entitled to their emotions, but we also can develop that skill that you just talked about and being more mindful. So, congrats. It sounds really interesting. I might even check it out myself.
Yeah, it's really helped me out. It's kind of getting out of that mode of what have you done for me lately thing because I feel like a lot of times when you're dealing with people, whether friends, family, even people you don't know, you kind of react based off what they just did to you versus, oh, this person's been for me here for me my entire life, but oh, you forgot to pick up eggs today. Like I'm unhappy with you, and I don't want to ever have a love-hate relationship with someone necessarily. So I don't want it to be I have to be getting these things from you for me to be happy with you. I want to be happy with you and accept you as you are no matter what you're doing and just you know, find solace in you're doing your thing. You may have made a mistake, but you weren't doing. And like one thing I really had to learn was people aren't doing things to kind of screw you. Like no one's like, I hate this guy in particular right here. I'm going to be mean to you, whether it's your friend or a random person. Usually people are doing things because they have their own things going on and are naturally thinking selfishly. And that's not a bad thing. It's just how people are. And it's just, I think it's better to give them that grace and realize that they're looking for love and trying and just having a hard time in their life and try to make times worse for them because you can control your reaction. You can't control anyone else.
Ooh, boom. There you go. You can control your reaction, but you can't control anybody else. I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
No, of course. I feel like I'm getting interviewed on my own show. Let me get back to the questions, okay? Okay, so how do you think representation in STEM fields influence young people, particularly those from underrepresented communities? And what role do you think media and platforms like yours play in this?
Well, I actually made a YouTube video about this yesterday. It's my first one that I made in like a really long time because I get a lot of people reaching out to me saying that I'm an inspiration. And an inspiration in many regards, but a lot of parents reaching out to me saying I'm an inspiration for their kid to get into STEM, which I think is really monumental. And also, let me just talk about the other ways that people have expressed that to me because I think it all comes together. I've had parents reach out to me about their kids. I've had other people who are professionals in STEM reaching out and saying that I'm an inspiration to them. People of all backgrounds, not even people who look like me, like all kinds of people. And that is all important because what I think I represent is authenticity. And it's hard for me to even gauge what I represent, like from my own perspective. But, what I hope to provide people is lens through which you can imagine STEM as a place for you to be your unapologetic self. And I kind of came out swinging when I was in grad school because when I was in grad school, I worked as an assistant professor at a university. And I know it sounds backwards. It was a community
You're
college.
and you're not a scientist? Come on now.
I know, right? It was actually community college. And on my first day of work, one of my coworkers threatened to call the police on me because she didn't think that I worked there. She told me,
What?
verbatim, well, you just don't look like you could work here. And meaning the biology department. I took that. I was pissed, right? I wasn't hostile towards her, but I was mostly upset at the notion that someone could have that I didn't even look like I could work there. I had on a suit. I had a briefcase. Like I didn't understand what she was talking about. But I think we all know, if you're a
Yeah.
professional and you have professional clothes on, what else is setting you apart from other people? And in that case, there were no black people working in that
Yeah.
department.
She
I
said,
was
"Who black?"
hello. I believe I was one of the first, if not one of the few. So I made a music video. I sat with that, and I don't want to call myself a poet because I don't be writing poems, but lyricist, really. I'm a lyricist, and the way that I process things, is I create lyrics in my head. And I've been making beats since I was in high school. And what ended up happening was I was so pissed with this woman that I made an entire song, like basically a proclamation of my presence in STEM. It was called Big Ol' Geeks. And it was around the time that Meg the Stallion came out with Big Ol' Freak. And I was like, well, you know what? If Meg the Stallion can be a big old freak, then I'm gonna be a big old geek. But I'm going to have that same approach of like unapologetic, representing who you are. If you can get on a pedestal and tell the whole world you a big old freak, why can't I tell the whole world that I'm a big old geek and like you're gonna take it like as I am. And the video was like the lyrics were highly scientific. You probably need a good old dictionary to break down everything that I'm saying, but the imagery was black women of all shapes, sizes, colors, dancing, having a good time. We were in lab coats. And all I wanted to do was present that imagery. And it ended up going viral. And because people had never seen anything like that before, this was before Black women had presence on social media as scientists. This was before any of the Black and X happened. This was 2019, I believe. So, I believe that it's going to be hard for us to advocate for people to get into STEM and into science without us being real and honest about who we are and what the state of the field is. It almost feels like a disservice, for me to look at a young Black child and be like, you should get into STEM, knowing damn well these people damn near chase me out the field. You know what I mean? So I have to do everything I need to do so that when I do see young Black children, I can actually feel confident about their experience, their future experience in STEM. And I, encourage other people to get a platform. And since we are underrepresented, we do have to be loud and proud about who we are so that there's no confusion. When you see a Black person coming into your workplace, into your laboratory, that you know exactly what they're bringing to the table. And you're going to value that as a welcome part of the science community.
I think that's awesome. And I remember seeing you for the first time at Black and Marine Science Week and all of that, and just seeing like you having the stage presence and all those other things. I've never seen Black science communicators, I think, ever other than Neil deGrasse Tyson. So it's nice
Yikes.
seeing someone else, especially like a Black woman. That's something that even when I came home and told my mom, she's like, "Wow, there's like Black girls like me out there like doing stuff like that. That's awesome. I probably shouldn't have been teaching. I probably should have been doing something fun like that." And
See?
she jokes around like that. So it's awesome to just hear your story when it comes to those things. And I think it's really hard to not feel welcomed, and then trying your best to fit in with these people and work with these people, and then they're like, "Oh, well, we don't want you here because you look like you look here," which is like, just slang for, "Hey, you're Black." You know what I mean? And that's not something you want to deal with at all. And something I had to learn a lot when I was working in science, particularly, was to live in love and not fear, and
Mhm.
to go into everything thinking, okay, this is going to be great. They're going to love me. It's going to be awesome. They're going to think I'm great because I am great. And I
Yep.
feel like people doing that and putting out that positive energy and choosing love instead of fear helps me not necessarily fit in, but feel more comfortable in my situation, because I'm like, okay, this is going to be good. And then when I'm giving off those good energies, I feel like people give them back. And I feel like sometimes both parties can go in judging each other before anything even happens, and then it's already, I don't like you because I have this misconceived notion, whether it's a Black person towards a white person, or a white person towards a Black person. I feel like everyone has to try to come in just empty themselves of any kind of doubts and all that stuff, and just try to have a good time.
Absolutely. And I think that what you talked about is the reason when people aren't able to do that, that's when you let imposter syndrome just take over completely, because imposter syndrome is largely shaped by perceptions. And if you drop the perceptions at the door and just say, this is who I am, a lot of transformation can happen.
Can
Um
you explain imposter syndrome, please, for some of our viewers that may not understand?
yeah, so I mean, I'm sure there's a formal definition for this, but I don't
Come on,
have that.
scientists, give me a formal definition. What's going on?
Shit. So oops, sorry. But imposter syndrome, it's when, in my experience from listening to my mentees and even myself, rarely, but when you, let's say you walk into a room of people who are esteemed, let's say, I don't know, you're meeting the president. Like, yes, the president is the president, but they're also human, right? And who's to say that they are not going to be interested or invested in anything that you have going on, or that they don't find it important, right? And so, take it down a few notches. It could be as simple as a student being afraid to ask their professor a question because they feel like they should know it. Why do you feel like you should know it? Didn't you pay all this tuition, get taught? Like, that's
And
the whole
ask them
point.
questions.
Yes, that is the whole point. Well, they're going to think I'm stupid. You think you're an imposter. Who do you think you are? Because you're not thinking that you're a student. You're thinking that you're inferior. And that is not how you should be thinking about yourself. Just because you're a student doesn't mean you're inferior. It just means that you're junior. Like, and junior does not equal inferior. That is why that is a lot of what I preach to my mentees. And it's like, you have to value yourself as a valued member of this community. Because if you devalue yourself, you're not going to get what you need out of this experience. You're going to be tiptoeing around perceived notions of who you are instead of dealing in reality, actually having a real experience. So I've seen people stress themselves sick because they're worried about perceptions and not necessarily dealing in reality. And it's a tough thing to watch. I've seen some of my mentees, and I try and I try, and it actually becomes a threat to our mentoring relationship at some points because I'm like, listen, I'm giving you advice about how to deal with your reality, and you're not locked in. Like, I need you to lock in and know, you're the future of STEM. You're the future, and like, you are important. So lock in.
And I'm glad that you say, lock in like that, because when I remember when we spoke from the first times, and the way you were very encouraging, like, yeah, you can do this. The things you're doing are important and they matter. That helps way more than you know. And I feel like a lot of people never got that from people. Like, for instance, for me in particular, my parents and my family kind of always were like, "Yeah, you're doing it. You got it. Like, you're our son. You're gonna go crazy. Like, go ahead and have a good time. Like, even if your things aren't going well right now, you're good." And something I try to think of all the time is, it was something I was reading one day. I know I make it sound like I'm a book nerd. I'm reading all the time, which I try to do.
Awesome.
It was this quote saying that in nature, not everything's blooming all the time, so don't expect yourself to always bloom. So times when
Ooh.
things aren't going well for me, I'm pretty much just like, it's not my time to bloom. Someone else is blooming now, and I need to be happy for them instead of being like, I want that sun, I want this going on, I want my leaves grow, I want my flowers out. I can be happy for someone having theirs and still putting myself in the best situation to grow without seeing all that growth right now. And I think that's really important, because for me, I had to learn how to be happy for others because I was only able to be happy for myself throughout my life. And when I grew up, there was people pretty much just praising me. And I was like, man, I don't know how to deal with stuff when the spotlight's not on me. You know what I mean? So
Shoot. Yeah, that's real. That's very real. And especially, like, especially I would say for students who are first generation. Like, I've seen this be a huge barrier because anything that they do, their parents are like, shit, you doing better than me.
mhm.
Like
Yeah.
you made it out the mud. Go you. And then it's like, on the other hand, I'm out the mud, but now I'm in a new mud, like, that I gotta get out of. And so yeah, I I resonate with that hard.
I think it's particularly hard when you see yourself, especially someone who may be naturally good at things, because something I had dealt with was, high school stuff was really easy for me. I was really good at retaining information, so it was whatever. And I feel like when you're naturally good and you don't really have to try as hard, when you get to that level, you have to really try. You have to bust your butt to get A's and get B's, because I like to tell my friends and stuff, getting an A between and a B in college, the difference between that is like four times the effort, and you really have to try to get that A. I was like, I don't want to try that. I'm going to get B's. I'm going to keep a three something because school is hard. Versus in high school, I was like, I can, like, wake up and roll out of bed 5 minutes before class and get an A. And I think that changed, and some people have to learn how to learn. I feel like that's a big barrier when you get later on, because if you didn't get great education in primary school, you're not going to know, oh, I need to actually study for things. If you can't remember everything off the top of your head, you're not going to know what to do.
I just want to say that you had all these concerns about sounding like a nerd, but your podcast is literally Black Nerds Matter. So I think that you should totally embrace it. I've learned so much from you. And like, some of these quotes, you got to write these down and like, you publish them, because you said some really great one-liners, especially the one about it's not my time to bloom. Um, it's so real.
Yeah, we got a script on here for a reason. So we got to look through and see what kind of quotables we can get out of it. But yeah, I really try my best to be mindful of these things and work at things I haven't been great at, because in school, just being stressed out with undergrad, I mean, for anyone who hasn't been to college and is planning on going, you have so many things you gotta do, so many small things, so many people to keep up with, that I don't think they build in enough time for you to take care of yourself. And I realized, like, in my fourth year, man, I'm not really happy with my life. I think I'm doing great in school, but I'm only working, like, if I don't see improvement in money or my schoolwork, I don't think I see any improvement at all. Like I had to realize that I need to work on myself and things that about me and like caring about things, doing different things that I love. And progress isn't just money and getting A's. Progress is being happy. And I was just trying my best to do that. I feel like that's something that you have to learn just in life. So I have another question. With rapid advancements in technology and changes in how we consume information, where do you see the future of science communication going, and how are you adapting to these changes in your media?
Misinformation is a B word. Like, I am very concerned about the rapid developments in how people are able to generate information, and information being like pictures, videos, like generate false information, things that aren't necessarily even true or representative of reality, but are enticing and engaging and sensational, and people listen to that, they're attracted to that. And I think that we have a huge challenge set before us, in that I don't feel like we have enough science communicators to fight this fight. And I honestly was very disappointed when Elon bought Twitter. I felt really upset when I saw a mass exodus of scientists from the Twitter platform. Most of them moved to Blue Sky or Mastodon. And so now we have this void on Twitter. We used to have a really robust and active science Twitter community. Twitter is like the world's town square, if you will. And if we are missing, and if misinformation is proliferating on that platform, but we're missing the people who are equipped to combat it, it's really a recipe for disaster. And so I think now we're really at a nexus point for science communication, where we're going to look back on these days and potentially be really regretful that we didn't do everything that we could to correct the course. On the other hand, to speak to that point, I am really happy with the uprising of Black science communicators specifically, and people who don't have traditional backgrounds. I've really enjoyed watching us develop our own platforms individually. And I honestly would love to see more collaboration between us all, so that we can make sure that Black people are a part of these rapid advancements in developments in knowledge. We're already behind, and I don't think we can afford as a community to be behind anymore, because no one's going to come
Absolutely.
save us. No one's going to come save us but us. And that's fine, but we got to do it.
So, how do you feel about the advancement of AI and things like ChatGPT? And does that ever work into things that you do, or is it something you're very against? Because there's two different sides I usually hear from people about this.
I think I really like ChatGPT, but I'm able to use it responsibly because I feel that my degrees gave me a lot of training in scientific reasoning and like research. So I'm able to question and inquire about things that I see, and I don't just take everything as fact. That's the whole point of the scientific method, really. So, really like AI. I think it's a form of reparations for me in a way, because it's able to do some things that I would otherwise have to outsource and like pay money that I do not have, that my mama don't got, that my daddy don't got, that ain't nobody got. And it's able to help me speed or streamline my process as a science communicator. But I do have serious concerns around people who don't use it responsibly, or people who just simply don't have the literacy training to digest things properly, or even question the things that AI is able to produce. And I, of course, worry about the people who lack the moral backing to use it responsibly. So, I mean, I lean toward liking AI, but that is with the extreme caution.
Okay. So it's like I like to think of it as like you like it's like seeing a lion at the zoo or whatever. You like looking at it, but you don't want to be in there with that lion. Like you like it in certain
Pretty
situations.
much.
Yeah, yeah. Certain spurts, but you don't want it all the time. Like some bad
Exactly.
stuff can happen from it.
Yeah, that zoo glass gonna need to be real thick. No cracks.
So our last question for you today is, what advice would you give to young people or aspiring science communicators like myself who want to make a difference in the field and ultimately the world?
Gosh, I would see it as a public duty, a public service. And I think that science communicators, you know, shoot. In my head, science communication is like another branch of like what helps our country run the way it should, right? It's not, of course, an official branch, although I think it should be, but it's very important, is what I'm trying to say. And knowledge is power. We've been saying that for centuries. Knowledge is power. And when you don't have the correct knowledge, then you don't have the correct powers. Like, and if you don't have any knowledge, then you don't have any powers at all. And so I think our job as science communicators is to help, oh God, I hate using this word, empower. Yikes. But empower, but I say that in the context of like literally like knowledge is power, right? Like, so we want to empower people correctly so that they can be a part of the change that we want to see in the world, because you have to understand the world to change it. And understanding science is a huge part of how we understand our world and ourselves and the society that we live in. Like, there's so many parallels. So I think our job is to figure out ways to make science accessible for science communicators who are just starting out. I think that, one of the things that I share is that you would be surprised how even the most basic facts of what you know can be mind blowing to um to other people, right? And even the things that you find that you were just curious about. Like, for example, I love gardening. I found out that I can't just buy one plant and garden it. For some of these plants, I have to buy a male and a female version of the plants and plant them together if I want blooms every spring. And I was like, dang, how am I supposed to tell what is the boy grass and what is the girl grass? Like, how do I figure that out? And like, that is a whole you could make a 10-part video series on just that. So I would say keep being curious. Um See what you're doing as an act of service to the public, and know that the knowledge that you're sharing could save the world. Who knows? Like, you can empower the a mom who's a stay-at-home mom to think about, gosh, maybe I do want to read this paper. And what if she comes up with an idea that saves us all? Like, it could be anybody. And I think it's really fun. So have fun. Um, and if anyone like has any questions, you can reach out to me. If I have some time, I do take Zoom calls sometimes, like Diedrich said. But you got to lock in. That's my only requirement, is that you got to be capable of locking in.
So when's Raven the Maven album coming out? We're waiting for that. We're waiting for the rollout
Jeez.
party, the listening party, all that.
Man, definitely next year. Definitely next year. I've been working on some really fun concepts, and it's timely. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Raven. It was wonderful having you. Make sure you check out Raven the Science Maven on all socials. We're having a surprise event for Black Nerds Matter in December. So check out this and all other things on our Instagram, Black Nerds Matter. Have a blessed and mindful day, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.